The big question that many people across the league have been trying to answer recently has been what exactly is going on in Utah, particularly pertaining to Lauri Markkanen. Hello there, my name is Ray Hoops. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. I cover all NBA content. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this one. Lauri Markkanen is obviously a phenomenal talent, being a 7-footer that also has a sturdy build and at the same time has the ability to shoot upwards of 40% from beyond the arc, putting up over the past couple seasons almost 50-40-90 splits. It's literally insane to imagine because that is what most teams in the league would love to have on their team right now. And because of that, he is a hot commodity on the trade market. The issue, though, is the fact that there seems to be no direct links as to where the trade talks will end up going, whether it be with a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder or previously when we thought it could have been something amongst the Spurs or the Knicks or the Warriors. Things are just a little bit too murky right now to really understand what's going on. I myself was a believer that the Oklahoma City Thunder had the most assets to provide, but it wasn't really a guaranteed thing that they would ultimately go ahead and attempt to pursue him. After the Mikal Bridges trade, when he went from the Brooklyn Nets to the New York Knicks, it put into perspective what exactly Lauri Markkanen's trade value could be like. And while it may not be 5 first-round picks from any particular team because they might not be that desperate considering how fluid this free agency has been so far, we might find ourselves in a world where he does command at least 3 and a up-and-coming star type player. And if that does potentially end up being the situation, does Danny Ainge decide to pull the trigger? The key thing to understand, though, is the fact that Danny Ainge and that front office came out and said the Utah Jazz will be fielding conversations. They will be willing to have talks in regards to trading Lauri Markkanen, meaning that they're willing to be persuaded, but we don't plan on doing it. And that's really the most Danny Ainge thing of all time to do because the asking price is going to be, number one, ridiculously high, and number two, probably not get met by very many teams or probably not be capable of being met by very many teams. And because of that, it really narrows down the likelihood of him potentially being traded to begin with. And while it was fun in games to just sit here and chat about all the different teams and all the different trade possibilities, there's a real possibility nowadays where he just doesn't get traded at all because the situation isn't that they feel like they need to trade him. And if you're a Utah Jazz fan, that can be enjoyable for one, because that means Lauri Markkanen is down to take another year and effectively burn it off of his prime in favor of having a better team after the Cooper Flag draft. Because remember, even if the Jazz don't manage to get Cooper Flag individually, that draft is laden with the top-heavy talent that this draft just particularly didn't. Now, the Jazz still had a tremendous draft this year, and nothing can be taken away from that. However, this was one of those drafts where you have a lot of mid-tier role player guys that are going to be in the lottery, but you don't necessarily have the Zion Williamsons, the Victor Wembanyama's, the Paolo Bancheros. You don't have that one star or 3 or 4 stars that really stand out as being people that will be immediately productive in the league and also take the league by storm at the same time. For that reason, looking into next year's draft, there's quite a few players like that, and the Utah Jazz want to be able to get a piece of that pie. But if you win too many games, you can't. Or at least the odds are against you. And in that same vein, the question becomes, well, do we want to go ahead and risk that and send Lauri Markkanen down the tunnel of wasting yet another year of his prime, putting up great numbers, playing alongside rookies that aren't really going to have their entire system and understanding of what their play style is going to be like laid out for them. They're still trying to learn their roles. They're still trying to find where their niche is going to be on the court and understand not only the playbook on offense, but also how to play defense. The Utah Jazz have the ability to either trade him or keep him and burn another year out of his prime. And if it is something that he is comfortable with and he's fine with losing the games this year in favor of receiving the ability to play alongside another future star / superstar caliber player that could be obtained in this upcoming year's draft, then I think we should go ahead and go for it because there's nothing saying that you must trade Lauri Markkanen. Now, there is a potential situation where he could clog up minutes from some of the other young guys that could need minutes later on, but right now he is a star caliber player. So if you can fast track 3 years and he's in his early 30s, that doesn't mean his career is over. Considering his playstyle, he's not a bruiser type of big. He's a very much marksman type of shooter. So in that vein, he has the ability to have a longer type of career. And last season, despite him not playing the most number of games, it wasn't because he wasn't healthy the entire time, but more so because they felt like they should just sit him for extra precaution, and also because they didn't plan on having the team go anywhere to begin with. By keeping that in mind, you also keep your opportunities available to field the conversations and the trade talks that you actually want, and not feeling desperate as though you have to get a deal done. Because Lauri Markkanen has been the heart and soul of this team for the past couple seasons, and he has embraced the Utah Salt Lake City culture like no other. And for that reason, and the fact that he also says that he wants to stay there, why would you want to force a star away? You're a small market organization. You have one of the strongest fan bases in the nation despite it. Why diminish what you already have in the talent pool that you already have if you're not going to be forced to, as long as you completely and honestly communicate with that star player? Again, if Lauri Markkanen is completely understanding that, hey, the big game hunting is not working, Paul George got signed, Valanciunas got signed, Brandon Ingram's part of a team that's actually getting put together right now, there's a lot of guys that just aren't available in the market anymore, and we can't really get that much better. Are you going to be okay if we just take this year, we develop the young guys, we get another person next draft, and then we go full throttle trying to make something shake? Is that something you're okay with? And if Lauri says yes, then by all means, who are we to disagree? Because at the end of the day, it's his career that's going to be put on the line, and his time that's going to be wasted. And you can't get time back. But I believe that Lauri Markkanen has the ability to stand the test of time when it comes to this sort of situation. And if he does decide he wants to stay with the Utah Jazz and he doesn't prefer to get traded, I, as Danny Ainge, wouldn't force a trade then, because that just solves the issue of having a veteran leader. Now, yes, he doesn't have necessarily playoff experience, but that also means that because he's played so many games and he's been in so many different situations, he's going to be able to become acclimated to difficult areas of gameplay very easily. He's going to be able to understand certain schematical things that a lot of other players just haven't had to adapt to across their careers. And because he is the veteran that he is, and because of how he processes the game at a mental level, it's going to be something that's very important to rub off on the younger guys. And he can play as the veteran leader that they really need on that roster to help push things forward and hold guys accountable. Because at the end of the day, you're only as good as the weakest link. And Lauri Markkanen has the ability to be the shiniest star right now that slowly fades into the background, while also putting everybody else on the pedestal that they need to be on so that they can achieve greater heights. And the thing that kind of comes to mind when I think about it really is a Al Horford situation, where yes, Al Horford is pretty old at this point, but he finally ended up managing to bag a ring. When he first went to the Celtics, he was given the opportunity to help coach up the young Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And those guys eventually ended up superseding him and becoming better players than him. And in that same vein, he ended up ultimately being that foundation block that they stood on to show that they were genuinely capable of being winning basketball players that also deserve to play at the highest level of basketball and be immortalized as champions. With that said, this also is going to be very interesting because as the free agency period has officially started, Lauri Markkanen still hasn't signed his extension, and everybody expects him to sign that extension. So the question could be, are they holding off on signing the extension so that they can trade him and make things a little bit more lucrative for the team that he goes to so that they have the opportunity to sign him for whatever money they decide to? Or are they going to sit down with Lauri Markkanen, have the conversation, let him know what it is, what it isn't, what the genuine expectations are for the team, instead of sitting there saying, well, we could go and trade and get a lot of guys that are really good, or we could not be really good and hope that the draft ends up helping us. If you are completely honest and transparent with him, I believe that he will do what's best for the team ultimately, and also be completely upfront and honest with how he feels about his situation. And if he is just going to be the money hungry guy that really wants to secure the bag and get that max contract, or if he's willing to go ahead and sort of work something else out to make things a little bit more impressive and a little bit more lucrative for the fans of Salt Lake City and Utah as a whole. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, I'm interested to understand where your minds are at. Do you think Lauri Markkanen should be traded? Do Do you think that if he's willing to sit through another terrible year that ends up being a rebuild phase to get a high draft pick in this upcoming year's draft, in his shoes, for one, would you want to be in that situation? And would you accept being in that situation? And for two, how important do you think the money is to him at the end of the day? Because remember, he does have a family and he does have personal priorities that he has to take care of from his own brand as well. With that being said, it's your boy Ray Thanks for tuning in this video. Go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications, follow me on all my socials in the description below, become a member of the channel, or drop a super thanks to help support the content. With that being said, as always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.